There was a time when Christmas wasn't about online shopping carts or endless commercials. It was about family gathered in warm kitchens, flour dust in the air, and the gentle hum of carols playing from the radio. Long before store-bought tins and supermarket shortcuts, the heart of the holiday was found in the desserts Grandma made by hand. These weren't just recipes. They were heirlooms, carried across oceans, whispered from one generation to the next, and scribbled on index cards worn soft from use. The kitchen table became a workshop of tradition, bowls of candied fruit waiting for the fruit cake, molasses and spice simmering in the oven, and ribbon candy curling into glossy shapes that looked like stained glass in the winter light. Every dessert told a story. Some came from old world roots, like nut rolls and plum pudding, while others reflected the resourcefulness of hard times, potato candy, date nut bread, and Jell-O molds that sparkled with canned fruit. Each one brought with it not just sweetness, but memory, the laughter of cousins sneaking bites of divinity candy, the soft clatter of spoons in boiled custard, or the quiet reverence of watching a plum pudding set alight in the center of the table. These are the flavors of Christmas past, the ones that made the holidays magical, not because they were perfect, but because they were shared. Tonight, we're opening the cookbook of memory, one page at a time, to revisit 20 vintage Christmas desserts Grandma always made. Number 1. Fruitcake with brandy cloth. They called it the dessert that could last forever, and sometimes it felt like it did. Fruitcake was once the crown jewel of Grandma's Christmas table. Dense, dark, and heavy with dried fruits, nuts, and warm spices, it wasn't meant to be eaten right away. Instead, it was carefully wrapped in a linen cloth soaked in brandy and stored for weeks, even months, to let the flavors deepen. This tradition traced back centuries, when preservation was essential and fruitcake symbolized both wealth and celebration. For many families, slicing into a well-aged fruitcake was like unlocking time itself. Each bite carried the memory of preparation long before the holiday season even began. But somewhere along the way, fruitcake became the butt of jokes, labeled as unwanted and inedible. Yet for those who remember, it was a ritual of patience and pride. And while fruitcake often stole the spotlight, Grandma's kitchen had simpler sweets too, cookies that filled the air with the scent of ginger and spice. Number 2. Molasses crinkle cookies. Few aromas feel as warm and comforting as molasses and spice baking in the oven. Molasses crinkle cookies were a staple in Grandma's kitchen, chewy, rich, and rolled in sugar before baking, so their tops crackled into frosted peaks. They carried the flavors of ginger, cinnamon, and cloves, echoes of colonial America, when molasses was more common and cheaper than refined sugar. These cookies weren't fancy, but they were reliable. They traveled well in cookie tins, kept for weeks, and paired perfectly with a glass of milk or a steaming cup of cocoa. For children, sneaking a warm molasses cookie straight from the cooling rack was as much a part of Christmas as decorating the tree. But while cookies offered sweetness in handfuls, some desserts dazzled the eye before they ever touched the tongue, glossy, delicate creations like ribbon candy. Number 3. Ribbon candy. It looked like art, and it tasted like pure childhood magic. Ribbon candy was one of the most mesmerizing Christmas treats. Hand-pulled and curled into bright, glossy folds, it shimmered like stained glass in the holiday light. This candy-making craft stretched back to the 1800s, when skilled confectioners would work the sugar by hand, creating ribbons so thin they would practically melt on the tongue. Grandma often displayed them in a crystal dish, not just as candy but as decoration. Children marveled at the delicate folds, though breaking off a piece was a test of patience and strength. Sticky fingers and sweet shards were part of the experience. Today, ribbon candy feels almost too fragile for modern shelves, replaced by mass-produced sweets. But once, it was a symbol of care, craftsmanship, and holiday wonder. And just across the table, another old-world dessert glowed with firelight and tradition: plum pudding. Number 4. Plum pudding. It was the dessert you didn't just serve, you performed. Plum pudding, rich, dense, and spiced with dried fruits, wasn't made with plums at all. In Victorian England, plum simply meant dried fruit. This dish was steamed for hours, doused in brandy, and brought to the Christmas table with great ceremony. Families would set it alight, flames dancing blue as everyone watched in hushed awe. When the tradition crossed the Atlantic, many grandmothers kept it alive, making Christmas feel like a stage play where the dessert itself was the star. Each spoonful carried flavors of history, celebration, and continuity. But not every Christmas treat was about grandeur. Some were simple clouds of sweetness that seemed almost too delicate to be real, like divinity candy. Number 5. Divinity candy. One bite, and it felt like eating a piece of a winter cloud. Divinity candy was a Southern holiday classic, made from whipped egg whites, sugar, and corn syrup, beaten until they turned into glossy white peaks. Dropped by spoonfuls onto wax paper, they hardened into soft, chewy confections that almost melted in your mouth. The name wasn't an accident. People truly believed this candy tasted heavenly. For children, sneaking one before it fully set was a rite of passage. For grandmothers, getting the texture just right, not too sticky, not too dry, was a mark of culinary skill. But divinity was also temperamental. Humidity could ruin a batch, and many learned the hard way that Christmas miracles required patience. From the ethereal sweetness of divinity, the holiday table moved into something far more colorful, a layered fruit and coconut dish known simply as ambrosia. Number 6. Ambrosia salad. They called it the food of the gods, and to many children it truly was. Ambrosia salad wasn't really a salad at all. It was a sweet, creamy mix of oranges, pineapple, shredded coconut, and often miniature marshmallows. Originating in the American South during the late 19th century, it became a Christmas staple by the mid-20th century. For families, it was a way to bring a taste of sunshine to winter's darkest days, especially when fresh fruit was rare. Ambrosia salad wasn't just about flavor, it was about color. On a table filled with browns and tans, it shone with bright whites, oranges, and reds like edible confetti. Kids scooped it eagerly, while adults appreciated its refreshing sweetness after heavy holiday meals. But while ambrosia lit up the table with brightness, another dessert shimmered in a very different way, molded, jiggly, and unforgettable. Number 7. Jell-O mold with fruit. It wiggled, it sparkled, and it was impossible to ignore. By the 1950s and 60s, no Christmas table was complete without a towering Jell-O mold. Shaped in rings, domes, or even trees, these gelatin creations held suspended bits of canned fruit, nuts, or even cottage cheese. They were more than dessert. They were decoration, the centerpiece of every mid-century potluck or holiday meal. For children, Jell-O was pure fun, bright colors, wobbly textures, and sweet flavor. For grandmothers, it represented creativity and thrift. You could stretch a few ingredients into something that felt festive and plentiful. Yet over time, tastes changed, and the once proud Jell-O mold slipped quietly off the table. Still, its image lingers in memory, a relic of an era when holiday magic could be poured from a box. And while Jell-O was the taste of the modern age, many families held fast to recipes from the old world, like the nut rolls brought by immigrant grandmothers. Number 8. Nut roll colic. It wasn't just dessert, it was heritage baked into dough. Nut rolls, also known as colic or potica, came to America with Eastern European immigrants. Grandma would roll out sweet yeast dough thin as paper, spread it with a rich walnut filling, and carefully roll it into spirals before baking. Making nut rolls was a family affair, mothers, daughters, and grandmothers working side by side in flour-dusted kitchens. They weren't simply baking, they were preserving their identity, passing down culture through taste. For many, a slice of nut roll on Christmas morning was as sacred as opening gifts. But as immigrant families blended into American life, these pastries slowly disappeared from many holiday tables. For those who remember, each bite carries not just flavor, but family history. And from Europe's nut rolls came another old-world tradition, smaller in size but bursting with spice, pfeffernuss cookies. Number 9. Pfeffernuss cookies. They were tiny, spiced, and powerful enough to warm the coldest winter day. Pfeffernuss, meaning pepper nuts in German, were bite-sized cookies flavored with cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and a hint of black pepper. Rolled in powdered sugar, they looked like little snowballs and were often baked in big batches to last the whole Christmas season. German and Dutch immigrants carried the recipe to America, where grandmothers would tuck tins of them away, ready for holiday visitors. Their long shelf life made them perfect for mailing to loved ones far away, each tin a sweet connection across distance. Yet for children, the flavor was often a shock, bold, spicy, and far from the sugary sweets they preferred. Only later did many realize these cookies were less about indulgence and more about tradition. And speaking of snowballs, Grandma had her own way of turning coconut and cream into something that looked like winter itself. Number 10. Coconut snowballs. They weren't just candy, they were Christmas captured in a bite. Coconut snowballs were little spheres of sweetness, often made from condensed milk, butter, and coconut, sometimes with a hidden cherry or nut inside. Rolled in shredded coconut, they resembled tiny snowdrifts, a playful nod to the season. These candies were easy to make in large batches, which made them perfect for sharing. Grandmothers often packed them into holiday tins, wrapped in wax paper, and gifted them to neighbors, teachers, and family. Their snowy look made them as decorative as they were delicious. But like many old-fashioned confections, they've slowly faded from memory, replaced by store-bought chocolates and candies. Still, for those who grew up biting into a snowy coconut ball, the taste was inseparable from Christmas joy. And from these snowy candies, we moved to a treat that wasn't just eaten, it was hung on the Christmas tree itself. Number 11. Popcorn balls. They weren't just a treat, they were decorations you could eat. Popcorn balls were once a Christmas classic, especially in the early to mid-1900s. Grandma would cook sugar or molasses syrup until it reached just the right stage, then pour it over freshly popped corn. With buttered hands, she quickly shaped the sticky mixture into round balls before it hardened. Sometimes wrapped in wax paper or tied with ribbons, these sweet orbs often doubled as Christmas tree ornaments. Children loved the sticky fun of pulling them apart, and families cherished the tradition of making them together. But as pre-packaged candies filled shelves, the popcorn ball faded into memory. Still, for many, the crunch of syrup-coated popcorn recalls cozy kitchens and homemade joy. And while popcorn balls brought crunch, another holiday staple brought comfort in the form of warm, fragrant bread. Number 12. Date nut bread. It wasn't flashy, but it was always there. Date nut bread became especially popular during the Depression and wartime years, when families stretched simple ingredients into hearty loaves. Sweet dates, chopped walnuts, and dark molasses gave it a rich, moist texture that made it a holiday favorite. Grandma often served slices with a smear of cream cheese, making it perfect for Christmas breakfast or afternoon tea. The aroma of date nut bread baking in the oven was enough to make a house feel festive, no matter how lean the times. Today, it's rare to see date nut bread on modern holiday tables, but for those who remember, it symbolized thrift, tradition, and quiet luxury. And if bread brought richness, Grandma also made sure to serve something smooth, creamy, and spoonable, boiled custard. Number 13. Boiled custard. It wasn't eggnog, but it might have been better. Boiled custard was especially beloved in the American South, where families preferred it over the heavier, boozy eggnog. Made with milk, eggs, and sugar gently cooked on the stove, it was chilled and served cold, often sprinkled with nutmeg. Grandma's boiled custard was velvety and comforting, a dessert drink that felt both simple and elegant. Children loved it because it wasn't spiked with alcohol, while adults appreciated its silky smoothness after a rich Christmas meal. But boiled custard required patience. Stir too little, and it curdled. Cooked too fast, and it scrambled. Making it successfully was a quiet badge of honor in many kitchens. And while custard filled cups, another treat was shaped by hand, twisted into cheerful stripes: candy cane cookies. Number 14. Candy cane cookies. They looked like decorations, but they disappeared fast. Candy cane cookies were shortbread-style treats, made by twisting red and white dough into cane shapes. Lightly flavored with peppermint, they were both festive and fun to make. Children often helped roll and twist the dough, their little hands leaving imperfect but cherished shapes. Fresh from the oven, candy cane cookies decorated holiday platters with color and cheer. Sometimes sprinkled with crushed peppermint or sugar, they were a playful nod to the classic Christmas candy. Though they've fallen out of style, the memory of baking them as a family remains one of the sweetest parts of Christmas past. And while candy cane cookies brought whimsy, another dessert carried the weight of centuries of tradition: the mincemeat pie. Number 15. Mincemeat pie. It wasn't always what we think of today. Mincemeat pie once contained real meat, usually beef or venison, blended with dried fruits, spices, and brandy. This mix, preserved in fat and sugar, could last for months, making it ideal for holiday feasts in the 18th and 19th centuries. By the time Grandma made it, most recipes had evolved into fruit-only versions, though the name remained. Spiced apples, raisins, currants, and citrus peel baked into a flaky pie crust made for a rich, fragrant dessert steeped in tradition. For some children, the flavor was puzzling, even overwhelming, but for adults it symbolized continuity with the past, a link to centuries of Christmas celebration. From the deep spice of mincemeat pies, Grandma's table often turned to something bright, jiggly, and cranberry red. Number 16. Cranberry jellied salad. It wasn't just food, it was decoration. In the mid-20th century, no holiday table was complete without a shimmering cranberry mold. Grandma would mix canned cranberry sauce with gelatin, often folding in pineapple, celery, or even nuts. Poured into a festive mold, it would emerge as a jewel-toned centerpiece, its ruby red wobble catching the candlelight. For families, it wasn't only about taste. It was about color, brightness, and presentation. Children giggled as it jiggled on their plates, while adults appreciated the tangy contrast to heavy roasts and gravies. Though today's tables lean toward fresh cranberry relish, the memory of those quivering, ring-shaped molds remains etched in holiday nostalgia. And if cranberry molds were playful, gingerbread men brought Christmas to life in the sweetest way. Number 17. Gingerbread men. They weren't just cookies. They were characters in the holiday story. Gingerbread has been tied to Christmas for centuries, but gingerbread men became especially popular in America during the 19th and 20th centuries. Grandma would roll out spiced dough, cut shapes with tin cutters, and let the children decorate them with simple icing, raisins, or candy buttons. The act of decorating was as important as the eating. Kitchens became art studios, with little hands giving each cookie its own personality. Some were neat and perfect, others messy and lopsided, but all were loved. More than food, gingerbread men were symbols of creativity, tradition, and family togetherness. And while gingerbread men delighted children, another treat was born from thrift, a candy made from potatoes. Number 18. Potato candy. It sounded strange, but it tasted unforgettable. Potato candy was a Depression-era creation, made from a humble mashed potato mixed with powdered sugar until it became a pliable dough. Grandma would roll it flat, spread peanut butter across the surface, and roll it into a swirl before slicing into bite-sized pieces. It was simple, inexpensive, and surprisingly delicious. Families cherished it as a reminder that Christmas didn't need luxury to be sweet. For children, it felt like magic, How could a potato turn into candy? Though it has nearly disappeared from modern tables, potato candy lives on in the memories of those who learned that joy could be found in the simplest of things. And while potato candy was a marvel of thrift, sugar plums were a marvel of imagination. Number 19. Sugar plums. They weren't what most children imagined. When Clement Clarke Moore wrote Visions of Sugar Plums danced in their heads in 1823, he wasn't talking about plums at all. Real sugar plums were spiced, candy balls of dried fruits and nuts, rolled together and dusted with sugar. Grandma's sugar plums were a labor of love, mixing figs, dates, almonds, and warm spices into bite-sized confections that lasted through the holidays. They carried the flavors of old-world Christmases and gave children a tangible connection to the carols they sang. Though rarely seen today, sugar plums embodied the magic of words turned into tradition. And as Christmas neared its close, one final cake reminded families that the season didn't end on December 25th. Number 20. Twelfth Night Cake. It was more than dessert, it was a game of chance. Before the modern calendar shortened the season, Christmas lasted until Twelfth Night, or January 6th. The Twelfth Night Cake, often a spiced fruit cake or sweet yeast bread, contained a hidden charm, sometimes a coin, a bean, or a tiny trinket. Whoever found it in their slice was crowned king or queen of the night's festivities. Grandma's version may have been simpler, but the tradition carried a sense of wonder and playfulness. Families gathered around, laughing and watching closely as each slice was cut. Would you be the lucky one? Today, the Twelfth Night Cake is almost forgotten in America, but its echoes remain in Mardi Gras king cakes and other festive traditions. It was a sweet reminder that Christmas was once a season, not just a day. As the candles burned low and the last crumbs of dessert were cleared away, Christmas once meant more than glittering lights or store-bought confections. It was about flavors that carried history, patience, and love. From fruit cakes wrapped in brandy cloth to popcorn balls hung on the tree, these recipes weren't just food, they were memory. Every dish told a story. Sugar plums whispered of centuries-old carols. Potato candy reminded us that even in the hardest times, families could find joy. Ribbon candy shone like glass in winter sunlight, while gingerbread men came alive in the hands of children. These desserts were heirlooms, passed down with care, shaping the holidays in ways we didn't always realize at the time. Today, many of these recipes have faded into memory, replaced by quicker, simpler traditions. But for those who live them, they remain more than flavors. They're the heartbeat of a Christmas we remember. If you felt a spark of nostalgia tonight, or if one of these desserts brought back a memory of your own childhood kitchen, we invite you to join us as we continue to explore the stories of the past, the foods, the traditions, and the people who made them magical. Because remembering isn't just about looking back. It's about carrying those stories forward. This has been the World Tapestry. If you enjoyed this journey, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep these memories alive together.